Welcome to the Great Basin Seasonal Outlook for October through January. Over the last 30 days, we've seen cooler temperatures across the Great Basin, especially across Idaho, Wyoming, northern Utah, and much of Nevada. We've also seen fairly wet conditions over the northern half of the Great Basin, where precipitation is above 200% of normal. However, dry and warm conditions still have persisted over southern areas of the Great Basin, where precipitation is well below normal. Looking at our precipitation for the entire water year, taking us back from last October 2018 through September of this year, and you can see precipitation has been generally near to above normal across all areas of the Great Basin over the last 12 months. Looking at the change in soil moisture, the top left image shows August 31st. You can still see the very dry conditions over southern areas of the Great Basin, and not much has changed through September. However, we have seen, obviously with the wetter weather, over northern and western areas, soil moisture starting to increase. Looking at our drought monitor, we have now some moderate drought over southern areas of the Great Basin with abnormally dry conditions over the eastern half of Utah due to the dry weather we've seen recently. We will likely see this drought persist over southern areas of the Great Basin as we're not really seeing a big moisture surge anytime soon. Elsewhere across the Great Basin, no drought exists and we don't expect any to develop over the next few months. Looking at our 10-hour fuel moisture, we still do have very low fuel moistures, again in those dry areas of southern areas of the Great Basin, with much higher fuel moisture further north. We're seeing that same trend in 100-hour fuel moisture, although fuel moisture has come up above generally 6% in the far south. Looking at 1,000-hour fuel moisture, again that same trend, the lowest conditions are in the southern areas of the Great Basin. Looking at a couple of our ERC charts, you can see how ERCs have come down across all areas of the Great Basin and are generally below normal for the time of year for all of Idaho, Wyoming, northern Utah, and Nevada. However, still over the Arizona Strip, far southern Nevada, and far southern Utah, ERCs have taken a significant decline, however, are just right around normal for the time of year. Looking at some of our live fuel moisture, sagebrush live fuel moisture is generally near normal for the time of year and still below normal and near record lows over parts of southern areas of the Great Basin, but these fuel moistures should gradually be improving. We still do have a lot of grass across the Great Basin from our heavy winter into the spring last year, so therefore we are looking for that well above normal grass fuel loading over generally the southern half of the Great Basin into western Utah. Again, mainly into Nevada is where we're seeing those anomalies really be quite a bit above normal. Further east, we're not seeing quite as heavy conditions over eastern areas of the Great Basin, but we will have this grass to tend with during the winter months. Therefore, for warm and dry periods, if we do see them and we see starts, we still could see fire spread in the dormant grass. Now that we've looked at what has recently occurred, we will look into what we are expecting here over the next few months. The 8 to 14 day outlook takes us from October 9th through the 15th, showing cool conditions still continuing as cold fronts drop down from the north. So across Idaho, Wyoming, and northern Nevada, we'll see likely cooler than normal conditions, and that is also where we'll likely see any chance of moisture. However, drier and warmer conditions will persist over the southern half of the Great Basin. Now we'll look at some of our trends looking at El Nino and La Nina. Here are many of our models that project the changes in El Nino or La Nina over the next several months. You can see most of the lines are generally fairly flat, meaning we're looking at generally neutral conditions, which is where we are right now. We could see some of these models kind of trend into the warmer El Nino and some in sort of the cooler variation, but really neutral is kind of what we are looking at over the next few months. So we'll likely see more of a transitory weather pattern across the Great Basin, meaning we'll have periods of cool and wet conditions and periods of warmer and drier conditions. Looking at the 1 month outlook taking us through October, you can see again those cool conditions in the north and those wetter conditions confined to northern areas with drier conditions or equal chances of wet or dry in the southern areas of the Great Basin. The 3 month outlook taking us from November through January still shows warm temperatures across the Great Basin and really not much chance of above normal precipitation. Possibly the eastern areas of the Great Basin may see the best chance of above normal precipitation as we go into the winter months with drier conditions over western areas. Now that we've looked at what we are expecting for the weather, we'll put all our pieces together, which generally translates to normal fire conditions are expected across the Great Basin over the next several months. That generally means low fire activity across the Great Basin from October through January. However, again, if we do see warmer and drier periods, and then that is followed up by a stronger cold front bringing strong winds, if we do have starts, we could see fire potential increase briefly for a burning period or two in those conditions. However, again, those would be fairly isolated with generally quiet conditions expected over the next several months as the fuels go into dormancy. That concludes our webcast for this month. Check back on November 1st for the next update.